Welcome everyone to the Hobby Desk. So today I'm going to show you how I paint my modern buildings. What do I mean by modern buildings? I don't mean anything from like 40k, any blown up ruins from some war-torn future. It's everyday kind of buildings that you see in real life. So this building here was donated to our local club by the lovely Ian Henderson, who is a bit of a Marvel fan, and I may have been bitten by the Marvel Crisis Protocol bug myself. It was probably a radioactive bug, but yeah, donated some of these and I thought it would be nice with a bit of paint on it, especially as we're going to be using these in our battle reports. So I'm going to show you a few techniques that I use mainly with an airbrush, but the same principles will apply with a good old hairy brush. But yeah, just to rip through terrain fairly fast with a fairly widespread use of different techniques, washes, and things like that, just to speed along the process. So I will show you how I paint these buildings. So the first thing I'm going to do is get a nice primer on there. So what I'm going to be using is a fairly cheap rattle can primer. I do recommend Halford's primer if you're in the UK. Halford's do a very good grey primer. Poundland or shops like that are great, but they're very small cans. Yes, it's a pound, but it's quite a skinny can, so it might not be quite so cost effective, but that's all I'm going to do. So I'm going to do that off camera because A, I don't want to douse the camera with the rattle can, and I want to wear a mask so I don't kill myself. You don't want to hear my muffled voice. So I'm just going to prime this just with a basic simple rattle can. Of course you can use a brush on primer or maybe an airbrush primer, but this is just what I do because it's fairly fast and dries quickly. Okay, so I have sealed it with a basic primer, so whatever primer you would like to use, whatever you normally use, go with that. I'm personally using good old cheapy rattle can just to seal it. I'm not going to go too mental with it, not too many coats, it is purely just to cover it. So you can see a little bit of the original red plastic trying to show through, but I'm not going to town on it. So I like to start in a place where there's majority of the block work, the brick work. So I could always start here with the smaller bricks in this particular occasion, or these stone bricks underneath. So in this particular occasion I am doing the stone bricks underneath. So my plan is to paint stone bricks, then I'm going to mask it up with a bit of masking tape or airbrush tape if you like, and then paint this brickwork, throw a few washes on there, and the same thing with the roof. I would like to make the roof maybe a little bit coppery. I haven't really decided yet. I'll see how it goes. I was going to do it a steel colour, weather it up a little bit, maybe a little bit of some kind of rust possibly. Now I thought maybe a bit boring, so I'm going to throw some colour on it. So I'm going to go with a coppery tinge, and then have a nice coppery oxidization in a few places. Once all the tape's off and it's all dry, then I pick out some details around the windows. I may even black out the windows. I know you can't see through the building very much. And Marvel Crisis Protocol, you know, you don't really shoot through windows and things like that. Buildings are always solid. But in this case I don't think it's going to be, no one's really going to try to shoot through that, but I could always block it up afterwards. So I'm going to start putting some basic colours down with my airbrush. Just airbrush is just a little bit quicker. Doing a bit of a test there. And here the go compressor kick in. So I didn't want to do just a flat grey. So I threw a little bit of green in there, a little bit of blue in there to make it a bit more interesting. So what I'm going to do is a couple of nice light passes over, make sure I've covered it. And later on I'm just going to pick out the occasional stone a slightly different colour, maybe kind of a tan colour, a bit of a khaki colour. So when you throw those washes on there, it will look a bit more realistic, because not all the stone blocks will be the same. There's a little lip there, I think I haven't quite got to. Here we go. Rinse and repeat, nothing on that side. And I probably should be wearing gloves, yes you're right, because I'm going to be spraying my hands. I've already got paint on my hands. Why not? Nice and gentle, couple passes over. Just a bit of an interesting colour. It's not quite grey, it's not quite blue. It's just a bit of an interesting colour. So I'm going to carry on with that. And there is a bit of block work here, around the staff area. My paint steps themselves. So now I've got it all masked off, so all the block work. My initial plan was to airbrush, nice and smoothly, the mortar between the bricks. Then I was going to dry brush the bricks. But as the bricks are so small, it works better with bigger bricks. If I dry brush down, for example, that way, I will get in the small nooks and crannies. So you can try dry brushing with bigger bricks, and I would thoroughly recommend it. But just a little teaser for you, I tried, it didn't really work so well. So it would pick up a little bit, but it wasn't crisp enough. So I've now started filling it in with the solid red brick colour. And then I'm going to put a wash over the whole bricks itself to fill in all the recesses. And now it also makes the bricks look a little bit less new and sparkling. So even if I dry brush this, it would look still possibly a bit too perfect. So what I'm going to do is paint all the bricks red, and then I'm going to make a 50-50 wash with my my mortar colour with a little bit of medium. So while I'm waiting for the airbrush to finish getting up to pressure, I've put the wash down on the bricks, so it makes the bricks look a little bit dusty, and it also puts the mortar in. If you notice, every now and again I've done a different colour block as well, and that is purely for when I put the wash on, it doesn't look too uniform. So what I've done is, I like a little bit of, it says Rust by Vallejo, but I think it looked pretty nice on the roof for some copper. So of course you can do the roof of your buildings. I mean, if you've got slate building, obviously slaty colours. But for this, like a nice, smooth, almost coppery look. Lay these colours down. A couple of nice thin coats, because metallics, yeah, they don't cover overly well, I don't think, especially the thicker ones. So thin them down a little bit, and it's always better to have two thin coats, even with an airbrush, than it is to put it all on the roof. Okay, so what I've done before in the past is a little bit of Kefonian Camo shade by Games Workshop. I've got a little bottle here that I've already mixed up with some medium because I like to put it on some stonework. Putting it over these stones really ties the different colours together. Now of course you can use other colours, especially from Games Workshop. There's a few nice shade colours for stone. If you want a really stark contrast, maybe put some Agrax Earthshade on, or some Null Oil. But I find that's quite natural. With stone, it does tend to go a little bit green in nature, and even if it doesn't, even if you don't find it green in nature, not being looked after, certainly not being washed, tends to go a bit algae-fied. So there you go. Try a bit of that, all the stonework. So with a little bit of weathering here and there, this building should look okay. A bit more realistic. So I'm going to put a little bit of this, which I really do rate, from Games Workshop. It's a nice oxidization effect for copper. I don't really know any other companies that do it, but you know, if you guys know, could you please put in the comments below? It's the only one I've used so far anyway. Now you can put it on really fierce, or you can just put it just with the bits of meat, like here. And it's fairly strong if you do it like that, or do that, and give it a little bit of a wash. And you'll find some recesses, and that's what I'm planning to do. Get some detail like that on it. It should find the edges. I mean, you could always plaster the whole of the roof, not a problem, but have some fun with it. You know, it's nature, it's random. I'm going to add a bit more water, really thin it down. I'm not even going to try the whole panel. If I don't like it, I could always wipe off the centre of that panel with a sponge. That's looking pretty good. So I'm going to have some fun with this stuff. Come back when it dries. Remember, with the dry brushing on the brickwork, as you can see there, I don't want to make it look too perfectly neat. It's not a new build. So if you want to touch up each individual brick, yes, it's time consuming. But remember, other buildings have bigger bricks, so it may not be so time consuming. That's fine, but the bricks will look more perfect. If you dry brush over the top, or even big chunky sponge, and just stipple, a stippling effect like this will look a bit more aged. So you can still see the individual bricks. Or I've got a semi-wide brush here, say semi-wide, and just, rather than using the tip, drag along the side of the brush and pick some up. So I've got some red on a palette here, and you don't have to do every brick. It's a gradual thing, so add to your fancy. You know, you don't have to make it perfect. You can concentrate more in one area, because you know, all the bricks may not be the same colour red. Just keep adding as much as you like. So the white, when it's in the recesses, does look like mortar, and it also makes the bricks a little dusty as well, a little aged. So just still see the mortar there. I'm just making the edge by that window pop a little bit more, adding a little bit more every time, a bit gradual. And this video purely is a faster way to paint red brick, and realistically. So I could just spray it the red brick colour, fine. Could put a dark wash in over the top, not a problem. But putting a light wash in is a bit different from what you normally see. So I'm just going to try touching up a bit more here. Corners I do like to make a little bit rougher, to be fair. Because the corners we're building, I believe, are probably going to be more beaten than anything else. So yeah, just keep messing with it, keep touching it up. Once that's dry, I am now going to dry brush some of the block work as well to bring it up. But you can see that it's kind of blended the different bricks together, and it does look a bit more realistic than just plain old simple grey. Looks a bit dull. And the oxidization here is dry, and that looks pretty nice. I'm pretty happy with that effect. And finally, with weathering comes realistic effects. What do I mean by that? Well, I'm thinking these are stone or steel, something like that. But if you want to make them glowing, object source lighting, so that would be the light source, paint that the colour you want, and the surrounding area would glow. I don't feel that they're going to be torches. Or you could always blank out the windows and maybe put a light in behind, make it look a bit more fancy. You could put perspex in the windows. You could put perspex in the windows and crack them up a little bit, so it looks like it's a bit more war-torn. I'm thinking just a modern building, not abandoned or anything like that, not blown up for once, which is a bit unusual for me, but what I like is posters. So this is going to be from my Marvel Crisis Protocol. So I saw some nice Marvel posters online, and Marcus was very kind enough to print them out for me. So I'm going to stick a couple posters on the side to make it look a little bit more realistic. And there you have it, how I paint brickwork and blockwork. So blockwork and brickwork, and you can make it as tidy as you like, as weathered as you like. Did a bit of a copper roof as well, just to add a bit of different colours to it. And why not vote Deadpool? So you can add weathering powders and make this look really beaten up. But for once I'm actually making a piece of terrain that's not beaten or blown up. This is going to be for my Marvel Crisis Protocol. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed this video. It's basically me on the hobby desk, mucking around, painting some terrain. Hope you've picked up some tips in this video, and remember to vote Deadpool for president.